friends, welcome back to another video. So today I'm glazing in the studio. The hairy potter is helping me film. So basically I have all of these things to glaze. I have some mugs, bowls, some little dishes for my incense and some plates as well, and some tiles. So I get a lot of comments on people asking me how I glaze my pot, so I thought it'd be fun just to pop that all in a video. I have quite a mix of different things, so I think it might be interesting for you just to see how I glaze all these different types of pots. So I first use wax resist. So I have a big bucket of wax resist here. So it's basically wax emulsion that I paint onto my pots, usually at the bottom where I basically don't want the glaze to adhere to the base. So obviously when you fire your piece in the kiln, you don't want any glaze to be left at the bottom because it's going to stick to your shelf. So especially for mugs like these where they have a flat base, I make sure I wax everything. So I just take a paintbrush, wax the bottom. For some of my pieces I don't wax, so sometimes I just hold them like this and dip them in the glaze and just make sure that I don't glaze too close to the bottom. Sometimes it's nice to get like a bit of a raw edge of the glaze, so for those I won't wax, but because these mugs have I threw them with an edge in mind, I'm going to wax up to where this bevel starts basically, because I think that will give me like quite a nice crisp line. So it kind of depends on your piece and what you want to how you want it to look after glazing. So just basically running that wax all around the edge. You just want to make sure that it's not too thick. So where it's thicker here, I'm just going to try to remove that so that it kind of can dry more evenly. You don't want it to be like looking like white in areas, because that will take ages to dry. So then I just leave this to dry before I glaze it. So yeah, I basically add wax to the bottom of my mugs, and something I also wax in my plates. So because again I have plates with a flat base, I wax, this is all waxed, so that I can dip the whole plate in the glaze and it won't attach to the back, it will only attach to the inside. So yeah, anyway, I'll show you that once we get to the glazing the plates. So I think we'll start with the mugs, then I'll do some bowls, then I'll do the plates, and then some tiles. Okay. So I have my glazes on these kind of casters, so that when it's full with glaze, I actually need to remake this glaze. When it's full, I can just roll it around on the floor and it's not like I have to carry a lot of glaze. I like to use the kind of toilet brush, my mixer of choice. I just like it because it can get into the corners of the bucket to mix up the glaze. So just make sure your glaze is really well mixed. I also mix it up between each item because it will settle out of solution. I'm just going to use a jug to pour it into my mug. So this is the mug I'm glazing, kind of little cute cottage mug. It's got a little door and some windows. It's got a bit of a new design for me actually. So this glaze is opal, so it's kind of going to come out like a pearlescent, like an opaly white really. So yeah, so then I kind of again mix it up with my jug just to really make sure it's really well mixed. And then you just want to remove the drips from the jug. Then I pour it in. And then you just want to swirl it up to the rim. I try to be fairly fast with this so that it doesn't get too thick inside. And then when I pour it out, I really do quite like a nice forceful pour, so I don't get too many drips down the kind of on the rim. But for this one, it doesn't matter too much because I am going to now dip the rim in. So I'm going to have like a bit of a two-tone on this cup. I want to have the top opal and the bottom cobalt, so like a blue. So I'm going to dip it halfway in the glaze. So I just let the drips kind of fall before I flip it over, just so they don't get too many drip marks. But if you like that effect, then you would flip it over a little bit earlier and the glaze will drip down, and some people like how that looks. So now I'm going to let this dry a little bit, and I'm going to then dip the bottom in a cobalt blue glaze. So I forgot to do the roof. So these are kind of a new design for me. So the idea is that the cottage has like a little roof for it, so that you can kind of use it for maybe like a tea bag or like a little cookie or something like that. So I'm kind of seeing how these work. This is actually the first time I've made them. So I'm going to glaze this in the same colour, so the opal colour. So I kind of waxed around here, so the glaze isn't going to attach to this part, but it's going to go inside and also on the other side. So I'm just going to hold it here, just try to not drop it. So again, just give it a quick mix, and then just dip it in. So if you're going to do dips like this, I would recommend actually wearing gloves. I know there's nothing like too bad in this glaze, but if it was a glaze that you're worried about the chemicals, definitely wear gloves. So I'm just going to pop that on the table, let it dry, and then I'm just going to sponge off any excess. Yeah, it's actually dried pretty fast, so I'm just going to take a sponge and then just go around that rim, and then also in there. So in the kiln, this will go on the shelf like that, so none of the glaze is actually touching the kiln shelf. So yeah, I just kind of leave them to dry on a board overnight until I load the kiln. So I'll be loading the kiln tomorrow with all these wares. I usually let them have an overnight dry, basically, just so that I know that any water has had a chance to evaporate before I put it into the kiln. But I'll probably share my kiln program maybe, but I do quite a slow ramp, so that if there is any moisture, it kind of has a chance to evaporate. So yeah, so now I'm going to glaze the bottom of this one in a cobalt glaze. Dip it in, and I'm going to overlap it a little bit with that opal, just so that I get kind of a nice kind of ombre-ish effect. So these kind of, where it overlaps, it's going to mix a little bit, and then I still have the true opal and the true cobalt underneath. And then I'm just going to get the sponge, and you can see where I've waxed it, the glaze hasn't attached. So I usually like to try to sponge it off at this stage rather than let it dry, because it will kind of just dry on the wax, and then that will be just a little bit harder for me to clean up. So I usually just clean up as I go. And then tomorrow I will, before I put it in the glaze, I will just give it a once over, and once I put it in, sorry, the glaze firing in the kiln, then I just give it another once over, just to make sure I haven't missed anything. So yeah, that's that one glazed. Okay, so this mug I'm going to glaze slightly different, because I want it to be one colour basically, so I'm not going to dip one colour and then one colour. I want one colour everywhere. This is a white glaze I have. So I'm first going to pour it in, and then I'm going to dip it upside down, but because I don't have enough purchase, I could probably do it, but it's a little bit dangerous. I'm going to use a dent puller. So I kind of got this idea from Old Forge Creations. So basically, if you wax the bottom and your bottom is flat, you can use a dent puller to give you some suction to then hold the pot, so you don't have to touch the pot. So we're going to have a go at doing that. I've done it before, but sometimes it doesn't get like a very good suction and it falls off, which is heartbreaking. But anyway, that won't happen this time. Touch wood. So I'm going to again just use the jug and pour it in. Again, just remove the drips, pour it inside, and then just swirl it up to the rim. This glaze I know is a little bit on the thin side, so I got a little bit more time to work with. Pour it out. Get get rid of most of the drips, and then I kind of work fairly fast. Put the dent puller on, push it down, make sure it's attached, and then we're going to dip in. And this one I actually do quite a long time, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bring it up, and I kind of go over to the table really fast just in case it does lose suction. And then I usually let it drip down the handle, so most of the drip is over the handle joint, just so that's as strong as it can be. And that's how I do one colour. Then I try to remove it at the bottom, and that's it. And then this one doesn't have much cleanup because we didn't do it at the bottom basically. Just if you have any droplets around the edge, I just get those with a sponge. So you can kind of see these little droplets here. Just make sure you grab those. Yeah, that's it. So this is a tea strainer. I've waxed that rim part so that it will sit in the kiln like that. So I kind of just hold it where I've waxed it. And I'm just going to dip the whole thing now. And let it pour out. I let it pour out so it kind of fills those gaps where my fingers are, and then I blow to try to get the glaze out of the holes. I don't usually make it all the holes, some of them do get filled up, so then I do use a little bit of a needle tool, yeah, just to poke if the glaze has kind of filled up and I haven't got a chance to poke it. So I blow it out. Then, yeah, where it's dry, I just hold it. And then I just get a sponge and just remove any glaze droplets around the middle. And then I just bring the sponge also on that outer edge, just because it was going to sit on the shelf like that. So I just want to make sure there's no glaze like really on the edge. So glazing a bowl, I'm going to do white inside and then dip it into a colour. So this is yellow. With all my bowls I always do white inside, whatever colour it is. Same with my mugs. So I usually like to do, when I do like two colours, I usually like to do it at the same time. So I'll first pour in the white and then dip it in the colour, instead of saying like glazing all of it white and then doing the colour. I just find when it's freshly glazed, if I do two colours, they kind of stick better together. Like if I waited a bit and then the white got really dry and then I dipped it in the colour, sometimes I get the glaze pulling a little bit away from the other colour, especially on the rim. So I find that sometimes I get areas where there's no glaze, like it's kind of the clay is showing through, if that makes sense. So anyway, I just find it better to do it like this. So again, white inside. I usually just put the whole thing in if it's big enough, just so I don't get any drips on the rim. I don't want to do too much cleanup with it if I'm dipping into another colour. Again, just roll it around to get it up to the rim. Let's do one more quick swirl around just to make sure it's nicely coated. Pour it out. So I just do a quick rim wipe. Then I find it helpful to wet my fingers a little bit so I can have a good hold on a bowl, because it's not an ideal way to hold it. So I kind of get a little bit of a suction with my fingers. And then we're going to go in. This is a quick dip colour. I try to do it a little bit of an angle. Take it out, shaking. Let it drip a little bit, and then I kind of roll it around. And I don't mind the drip coming down, especially with this colour, it looks really nice. So yeah, this is like more of a raw edge glaze, so it should hopefully toast around. The clay kind of toasts as it fires around that edge, which can look really pretty. So it has actually touched my fingers a little bit here, so I'm just gonna make that again, wipe that off so that edge is crisp. So now I'm going to glaze my plate. Again, I've waxed the behind and I'm going to dip it all into the glaze so then this gets covered. What I used to do, I did like pour it in, which you can do as well, but what I found was the force of the pour, it kind of made the glaze like thinner in an area, so I would get like a weird bold patch in a way where the glaze was thinner here than it was here, and because my glaze are quite reactive, you really notice the difference in the thickness. So now I just dip. So yeah, I'm just gonna mix up the glaze. This is a Aribe style glaze, so it comes out green. So I hold it like this, so I hold the bottom and I hold the rim. This, I will wipe the rim off so you won't see like a fingerprint, like a finger mark. So I'm just gonna dip it in now, kind of let it go flat, give it like a wiggle basically, just so that there's no air bubbles trapped. And then I'm gonna start to take it out, and I try to do that slowly. I find these drips can look nice as well. I just want to make sure there's no pooling basically at that bottom part, so that's not thicker. So that's the inside, and then I lay it on the table upside down. So I can sponge, now I'm going to sponge the bottom. So again, while the glaze droplets are still wet, I'm just going to sponge them off. And then I'm going to take that sponge around the rim to remove the glaze on the rim. I just think the contrast between the glaze and the rim looks really nice, like the raw clay of the rim. It means I can hold it there and you won't see it if I sponge it off. Glazed plate, nothing on the back. And so I'm gonna do a tile now. These are like tiles my cottages sit on, so if you have an incense cone or a tea light, there's something for it to sit on, and then I have my cottage on top. Maybe I can show you, yeah. I'll show you what I mean. So this kind of goes underneath, and my cottage sits on top. It's kind of like that. So I usually glaze that to match the roof of my cottage. So to glaze the tile, I actually just hold it. I haven't waxed it. I just try to hold it as best I can on the edges. So I'm gonna place it into the glaze this way, obviously, so it glazes to the top. And I try to do it so that I start off at an angle. I kind of start, so if the glaze is here, I start like this and go on the surface of the glaze. This will just hopefully help with not having an air bubble stuck underneath. So yeah, so let's go through it. So starting with that edge, I can see it's attached, and I really slowly then submerge the rest, just the top. And again, I'm gonna take it out one side at a time. Kind of making sure there's no drips, yeah. So I'm kind of letting that top drip down, which can also look pretty. So you can, if you really want, take that edge off where your fingerprints are, but sometimes I don't do that. On the other side, I don't have a fingerprint. So yeah, that's a tile glazed. So yeah, I think I've shown you pretty much like a kind of a nice range of the different things I glaze. So basically I'll leave these overnight to dry, and then tomorrow morning I'll load the kiln. So I'm just loading the kiln. I've done the first layer. I always make sure the props are underneath the thermocouple so that the shelf will sit underneath, because this one sticks out quite a lot. Sorry, it's very early. It's the first time I spoke. So yeah, I have bowls, and then some of the shorter mugs, some tea strainers, and again some of the shorter cottages that I glazed in a previous session, so you didn't see that in this video. But yeah, so this is the first, sorry about the shadow, but yeah, this is the first layer. And I'm gonna go ahead and load each layer, and I'll show you them once it's loaded. So this is the second layer. I have some cottages, and then these are most of the mugs, so the taller mugs, and just a few test tiles to fit in between. These are my coloured porcelain testers. Yeah, second shelf. So this is the third layer. So I have some plates. This is quite a skinny layer, so really small props, some plates, and then some incense dishes and some test tiles in the middle. So I'm just loading the very top shelf now. I have some plates under here, and this is just a half shelf on top with some another plates, test tiles, and some tiles. And here I'm going to load some cottages and mugs, and then I'm probably going to try to put another shelf of tiles on top of this one. And the top layer. So I have a couple of shelves, half shelves on this side, and then this side is deeper for mugs and cottages. And I'm just going to put my cones in. So I have the pink one on the left, that's 6, the middle one is 7, and the last one is 8. And I'm gonna try, it's a bit naughty, but I'm gonna try to pop it here. So it just fits in that little bit there. So always important to use cones. It makes sure that we know that it's fired correctly. And yeah, so I'm just gonna close it now. So in case you're interested, I have the Skutt KMT 1018 kiln, and I usually remove the bung for the first part of the firing, and I put it in about 2 hours. And I'll show you the program I use. So I fire to between cone 6 and 7. And I'll show you the program in case you're interested. So here is the program. I do quite a slow ramp just in case there's any moisture, but yeah, then I'm just going to start it. There we go. So I'll come back when it's fired and I'll show you how the pieces look finished. So I've just unloaded the kiln and just wanted to show you some of the pots after firing. So these are like a dark green Aribe style plate that I showed you me glazing. And I've got some cups here, so some little guinomi. So they're kind of set out for people's order. So someone's ordered 4 plates, 2 plates, a little cute set of cups, and then these are some kind of ochre bowls, yeah, so like this kind of yellowy colour, and again on the guinomi. And these are the tea sets, so little lid, and then the strainer that I showed you me glazing. So the idea is that you strain your tea and then you can set it on the lid there, like that. So I still have some mugs in the kiln. I actually did unload that full load I showed you, and I lusted some mugs, but they're in the kiln at the moment and it's cooling down, so I think I'll show you them when they're out of the kiln later. Just so you can see the kind of two-tone effect. I think I showed you that when I was glazing, so yeah, you can also see them with the luster as well. And yeah, so I think I'll probably clip to that next, but maybe just in case I forget, I might clip to it now, and in case I forget to do like an end to the video because it's quite late, I'm unloading, I might be tired. So yeah, I just want to say thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions on the glazes, and if you had your eye on a particular glaze, I'm happy to share the recipe, so just let me know down below which one you'd like to see. So yeah, okay, until next time, bye. And so I also have the mugs that I glazed here. So yeah, I'll kind of just show you a few. So this is a blue with an opal glaze. They kind of overlap in the middle, so I really like how they blend together. Some like orangey brown tones with some greens, green and white. Yeah, so they're kind of a whole mix of colours. This one is really cool. Like kind of pink and blue. And yeah, this is also one of my favorites, the pink with the orangey color. Yeah, this is one of my favorites as well. So yeah, so I hope you really enjoyed that. I really do quite like a mix of different colors of glazes. So yeah, again, if you want any of them, just let me know. Oh yeah, this one is really pretty. The white with the orange. This one is like flowers. And then I've also just done a gold luster as well. I do have a video on lustering if you're interested as well. I'll probably include it. I'll link it down below. Okay, thank you.